Welcome to Real Life in Real Estate. I'm Nikki Robbs, and I serve the Tacoma and Puyallup area in Washington. I love to meet your real estate needs, and this podcast is all about the real life stuff of real estate. It's your real estate questions, trying to get in front of them and answer frequently asked questions with people who know a lot more than I do. So today with me is Kyle Dedden with Ticor Title. He is coming to represent Ticor Title and the whole title and escrow side of the transaction because he's been doing this a lot longer and he will be able to answer questions that frequently come up for people. So welcome, Kyle.
Thank you. Very gracious introduction. I appreciate that.
How long have you been doing title work?
I am actually coming up on my 5th year of being a sales rep with Ticor and have loved every minute of it.
Awesome. So sales rep means you get to hobnob with agents all the time and come visit us and tell us all the things that your company offers.
Exactly, yeah. So that is the primary role of my job, is to communicate with great agents like yourself and loan officers and offer different modes of support and different ways I can bring value. And then I think paramount is just taking care of the people that you work with, because at that point we are an extension of you and we need to make sure that we represent you and your clients to the best ability.
So usually as regular people, you've contracted with your agent, you're going to buy or sell a house, and your agent will pick a title company for you.
Yes.
Usually you guys don't get to pick the title company, but we have done the behind the scenes work of calling different title companies and making sure that they can handle the request of your particular property and your needs. And so I will just tell you, hey, our title company is going to be Ticor or whoever else is meeting the need at this time. So it's a lot of relationship building behind the scenes for you guys with agents and loan officers, and we get to know you guys pretty well. They have served me well. They've done this and this for other clients. I know that they can handle us. So as buyers and sellers, you don't have to worry about which title company does this or that. We've already done the work.
Yeah, I think the key word in that was relationships. I think the number one most important factor in our industry is to show that we care and there's trust, and that's only built through having a solid relationship. And so it's not that you're promoting or singling out one particular company. It's just saying, hey, like you said, I have a relationship with this company. They've served me well in the past, and I know they take care of my clients and treat them like I would expect my family to be taken care of.
Yeah, definitely. And there are a few situations where one title company is very similar to another and there might be a slight difference.
Right.
Other times we run into a property that's just totally unique and one company can't do what we need.
Yeah. No.
It does happen. So if you don't see Ticor, that's okay.
Yes. It's all about finding the right fit for everyone's needs.
Yeah, definitely. Just like not one agent is good for everybody. So
well
certain
put.
things I don't want to do.
Well put.
All right, so one of the questions that I thought Kyle would explain much better than I do is, what is title insurance? It does come up for both buyer and seller.
Yeah.
And there's two ways to look at that.
Yeah, so for the seller side of it, we'll start there. The seller side is one of the few insurance products that you are going to purchase at the time that you sell a home. And it is essentially you selling the home to your buyer and passing it to them in the same condition that you purchased it. So it's saying, at time of sale, I was not aware of any unforeseen liens or encumbrances, disputes with the neighbors. Yeah. None of this is going to show up, so that if it does arise for your buyer, then you as a seller can fall back on your title insurance and say, hey, this may have been missed, or something has now popped up out of the woodwork, and that protects you from any legal exposure that you have to the sale of that property at that point.
Right. So then the next owners can't come back and say, you didn't tell me that your fence line was 1 inch over.
Exactly.
They're like, whoa, title insurance takes care of that. So
exactly, yeah.
Not my fault.
And then on the buyer side, you are purchasing title insurance more from a perspective on your lender's policy, and that protects your position as property owner. It secures your indebtedness to the property, and just saying that you are the party responsible. I had a situation similar to this where an agent let me know that there was a situation where a pre-existing relationship affected his ownership in the property, and so because of his lender policy, the title insurance company that closed that property was able to provide legal representation and protecting his interest in the entire property from letting the neighbor essentially come in and use their funds in court to try to strong arm
Wow.
him out of a portion of his property.
Wow, that's good. So
Right. So, you know,
yeah,
it's nice to see that an insurance that you pay for actually comes into play sometimes. You know, I
right?
think how often do we feel like
Yeah,
things like auto insurance we're just kind of putting money into and
into a someday.
yeah,
Like, please
exactly.
protect me someday, maybe.
Just in case insurance.
Just in case, right? Right, home, fire, like earthquake.
Mhm.
We don't have earthquakes very often. As long as I've lived here, there's only been one. So, like, do I need earthquake
I
insurance?
was just talking to someone who purchased earthquake insurance, and the price they told me they paid for it was blew my mind.
Yeah, yeah. But if you live on a hillside, maybe you should.
Yes, that peace of mind again. So going back to peace of
Right.
mind, it's totally worth it. It's very
Yeah,
worth it.
totally. And then all those insurance fees, they show up at closing. So it's not something that you do at the time that you sign a contract that you're going to sell your house. It just appears at the end.
Yeah, and that's a very good point to bring up because a lot of people are, you know, they've already said, well, I already put my down payment. You know, I already came with money to the table. Why do I need more money? And
Right.
a lot of that is just some of those closing costs that, you know, pop up, sale and excise for sellers,
Yes.
you know, the title insurance for buyers, different fees that originate. They're not like, they don't get out of control, but it can be a surprise if you're
Yes.
already, you know, the process of moving is very stressful. It's very emotional. And,
Mhm.
you know, you don't want to feel like, why am I being nickel and dimed to death throughout this process?
Yes.
You know, it's already hard enough for me to come up with this XYZ down payment that
Yeah.
people have been saving possibly years for.
And especially when you're on maybe a down payment assistance program. So like
Exactly.
you've got so many things that are being covered, and then you see the closing cost estimate just a couple days before
Yeah.
closing, and you're looking at $10,000.
Mhm.
Where is it going? And trust me, there's a lot of places, and we cover it in detail. If you're my client, we talk about it. We talk about it early because
Smart.
I hate that feeling
Right.
of I didn't know that was happening. So
Yeah, I can't redraw on my 401k again. I
Yeah,
already did that. Yeah.
right, there is no one else to ask for money.
Yes.
I've done it all.
Uh,
Yeah, awesome. All right, one of our other questions is, what is escrow? Because Ticor does provide title services, but also escrow services.
yeah, so almost as if they're two different branches within the same company. So, like we just discussed, the title side of a transaction kind of prepares the buyers and sellers to be in a position to even go forward with the sale, right?
Mhm.
Making sure that no one else pops up on title, like, hey, we noticed that there's a HELOC on the property. Did you know that this is going to have to be paid off? Or actually, there's still an ex-spouse on title. Are they going to be in a
Right.
position to sign? So, title will identify everything that you need to be aware of so that you can cross the hurdle into actually closing the transaction. And that's the escrow side of it. So, the escrow side will begin communicating with agents, buyers, sellers, letting them know what forms we need up front. There's a lot of communication up front.
Yeah.
And then I would argue that the conception is that, or the perception is that escrow just goes away, right? Because then we get started. We start collecting payoffs. We start collecting, you know, different bank documents, loan documents, anything that we need so that we can in full ensure that the transaction is closed. Everyone walks away with the right amount of money that was expected to be put into the transaction or come out of the transaction, and that everyone gets keys and owns or legally passes on the property correctly. So that's the escrow side of it. They kind of finish the loop, if you will,
Right.
and get everyone coordinated and scheduled, and then, you know, it's kind of that mad rush with a few days left. It's like, hey, we need you to be available sometime Thursday to come in and sign.
Yes. And so especially for buyers and sellers, your agent is handling so much stuff at the beginning. We're touring houses and we're doing negotiation, there's inspection, and there's all kinds of stuff, and your agent is really hands-on, and then it seems like we disappear.
Yes.
It's not that we disappeared, it's just that we handed off all the paperwork to you guys, and now it's your turn, and you do the mad dash. We did it in the first 2 weeks, and you have the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's almost like, you know, I've heard this described a couple ways, but the way I like to explain it or relate it is kind of like a flight, right? Like you get on a plane and there's all these like onboarding, TSA check-ins, security gates that you need to go through. And then you get on the plane, and outside of, getting checked in on once or twice for a snack or hearing the captain's call at the beginning and the end of the flight, you're really on your own while you're up in the air, right?
Yeah,
and then as soon as you get close to landing, all of a sudden the instructions come back into play. Put your table up, buckle your seatbelt.
Put your stuff away.
Yeah, put your stuff away, leave in an orderly fashion. And so we kind of adopt that same mentality as well.
That's a good one.
Just to say like, hey, the experience of a client that comes through our desk starts from not just the minute they go from their TSA gate or they make it on the plane, but all the way through the close. And we want to make sure that as they're getting off the plane, they're greeted and there's a congratulations. And the flight went well, right? And so
we always want the flight to go well.
Everyone was taken care of and leaves the plane happy and ready to fly again one day.
Yeah, and that's all we want is happy people. All right, so we kind of discussed this with title insurance, but who pays for the title and escrow side of things?
Sure. So the buyers, both parties pay for title insurance,
right?
But it's a little bit different. The buyers pay for their lender's insurance on their loan, and then more importantly, the sellers pay for the title insurance on the property that they are selling. So each party is then protected from anything that pops up along the way, whether it is an interested third party that tries to come after the buyer saying they had a right to some part of, the land, a parking spot, a piece of the backyard, whatever it is. And then the seller is protected from saying like, whoa, that was never an agreement, or that contract went with the property. And so everyone is represented from any sort of outside force that may try to threaten the buyer's hold on the property or the seller's condition which they left it in.
So really both sides will see a charge on their closing statement
for title. And then they share if the only time that this comes up into play is like for VA clients, and that's when it comes. It's handy to work with a realtor who knows how to work purchase sale contracts to know that certain boxes are collected, because 50-50 is kind of the agreement that escrow fees are split. However, with VA clients, because of their government benefit, they are allowed to pass that cost on to the buyer or the other party, whichever it may be, in full.
Okay, well, that's interesting. No one's come on to say that yet. Do you have any tips for buyers, especially in coming into 2024?
Yes, and Nikki did not tell me to say this at all, but the number one thing that I see, that I hear in all of the events that I go to, the speakers, the advice that I get, I'm also personally a renter, and so I would say the moment you are able to make it work for yourself, basically what I'm saying is don't try to time it. You'll never be able to time it. The best time to get in is when no one else is looking to get in. So everyone's like, well, I want to wait till there's more inventory in the spring and the summer. The problem is you and a million other people are going to be in that same situation. So while you might be able to negotiate now and get a payment that works for you, or you can make work, you're going to be competing with more people in a more competitive time and overbidding. We all saw what happened like 3 years ago. And so now you're overpaying for a house and getting the same payment, walking in with less equity than you would have had you just purchased 5-6 months ago, right?
Yeah. For those that can, it works for your schedule, right? And sometimes kids throw a wrench in that. But if you can move in January or November and the house you like is there, that's part of the problem.
Everyone wants to wait for the spring and the summer for inventory to come on, but I would argue the sooner you can beat the rush and get ahead of that, and obviously it's got to work for your living condition and your monthly budget, but if you can make something work, the best time to get in is now and start building that equity. Get creative, look at multifamily properties or properties with income generating components to them so that you can offset your mortgage. I mean, it's all of these are just great strategies.
Very handy, very handy. What about for sellers? Do you have any tips? Or, you've got your ear to the ground too, so.
I would say for sellers, a lot of them look at, it's like, well, I want to sell my house, but this commission thing is just getting out of control, right? And I have to pay how much to sell my house? But, when you work with an agent and they're able to provide you the correct advice throughout the process, how to stage your home, how to get things ready, all the things that as a seller you might look at a room or the condition of your house and you're obviously very proud of it because you've lived in there for so many years, but an agent will be able to come through in the eyes of a prospective buyer and identify certain things that maybe you can't see because you have an emotional attachment to the layout of a room or the condition of a backyard or something. And it's like, hey, we could get you this right now, but if we took a little time or we paid staging, and I know that, you may not be looking to, we just talked about more fees adding up. Staging is one of those fees, but creating value in a home through the eyes of a professional can really help you go from your asking price of this to maybe this, and now you're getting competing offers. And so you went from a situation where your house is sitting for a month or two to now you're getting competitive offers over the weekend. Yeah, it's invaluable. Having that eye of expertise to identify things and help you negotiate what best offer to take, because you might look at 3 offers as an independent seller and say, I want the one that's going to give me the most, but you don't understand what it comes with, what it's going to cost you,
what strings are attached,
how their broker or how they might come back afterwards and make negotiations, and you're in a pinch and you're like, well, we're already under contract, we lost days on market, I have no choice but to concede the extra $15,000-$20,000 that I just saved myself.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for the shout. Awesome. Do you have any tips on the title end of things or and the escrow end of things for people who are moving out of state? You're moving from one state to another.
Yeah, so this happens more often than not, especially being, a military community that the Tacoma area is home to. Having the flexibility in your timeline and being able to communicate that with your agent, with your buyers, so that you guys can get creative where you're not stuck in a position. I've seen it before where people, essentially they're homeless. And it's an awful word to say.
Right, but they're between homes.
Yes, they've shrunken their timeline, or they have not negotiated in a way that has allowed them to stay in the home beyond closing. Or, a lot of people want to push closing out, months and months out. And it's almost to your advantage to work out a scenario where, everyone's flexible, you're flexible as a seller. There could be unforeseen things happen. Like, let's say you're building a home out of state, or, hey, my buyers won't leave the property, but I've already closed on mine. What do I do now? I'm left between a home. And so, being upfront about your timeline, expressing that to your agent or the buyers that you're taking an offer from, and just making sure that everyone communicates and creating a scenario that, everyone feels like it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, we do. We always want a win-win for everybody, and that can be negotiation. It can be a remote signing.
Yes.
I had clients that moved into an RV full-time, and they were going to go travel and figure out where they were going next, but that meant that when we closed, we weren't sure what state they were in.
Right.
They had to continually communicate, okay, well, now we're in California, well, now we're in this other state, now we're in this other state. And as we got closer to signing, they're like, okay, where are you? Because somebody.
Yeah, getting creative kind of with your living condition, and also just communicating like, oh, we're set to close on this date. Well, we have a family vacation on that date. Or I can't tell you how many times we've had a client gets scheduled for signing, and then at the very last second, we find out that there's a spouse across the other end of the world.
Oh, yeah.
And we're 3 days away from closing, and now
Yeah.
we need to coordinate with the embassy and overnight docs and remote online signing if necessary. So just communicating a lot of that up front.
Yes.
And, I guess this is sort of like downsizing out of state, but just anyone selling in particular really is just letting us know like any hurdles or factors that might come into, closing the deal, such as a spouse in another part of the world.
Yes. When I closed on my own residence, right after we moved, my husband was on a work trip overseas.
Right.
Luckily, it was after we moved, but it was looking like if we can't close here and we have to close here, he won't be here.
Yeah, and we can, as an escrow company, we can always work with timelines that get shifted. We can do things early. We can coordinate with the loan officer as long as we have the runway to prepare for that. It's when we're in a situation where it's like, I
forgot to tell you.
Yeah, well, that's a 5-day process, and we got 2 days to close now, right? Yeah. And it's Friday, so what are we going to do because it's over Saturday, Sunday? So.
Yeah. Oh man, that's not fun. What are the other easy pitfalls? Like just a little forethought, little discussion, and we could have avoided this. So obviously, communication about closing dates, family vacations. What else have you seen?
I have seen situations where people. The house is under contract. It's this new house and there's no fridge, or there's old appliances and they want stainless steel ones, or they want to drive their new car to their new house and just put that photo on Instagram or Facebook that they can just, out with the old, in with the new. And one of the last things you want to do, wait to finance anything, any big expense, even if it's cash. Just wait until it closes. I know the patience is hard there because it's already been a process. You've been packing, you've been house hunting, you've been all over the board, and now you're looking to reward yourself a little bit because you know what? We have put in the work. This thing is under contract. We're good to go, but you still have to wait to cross the finish line to get there because financing needs to stay in place. Your income, all of that is taken into consideration before we cross that final goal line. And have a conversation with your realtor, with your loan officer about anything like that, and they should be able to offer you the advice you need to make sure that nothing needs to be extended or an addendum. Where did this extra money come from? Oh, that was a gift I got from my grandparents to get the house. I mean, all of that needs to be explained.
Yeah, it just needs to be explained. So all the little things, and it kind of sounds like title, escrow, agent, lender, we're all up in your business.
Yes, it does feel, yes.
And it might even feel a little weird to be this vulnerable with this many professionals. You're really exposing a ton of pieces of your life.
Exactly.
But for regular people, real life and real estate, we deal with so many numbers. We don't take it personally. And there's really zero judgment because we deal with so many numbers. It's just, there's the situation. Okay, we're going to problem solve for this situation.
Exactly.
And it's never they could have done better.
No.
It's never like that.
No. Again, back to the relationship side. We are a service-based industry, and, every transaction needs to be treated the exact same with the same level of care, regardless of situation. And we're not out to, I don't think anyone in industry is out to criticize or critique. It's just all about helping people achieve their goals. And that might sound cliche, but at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. It's not everything, but we are asking quite a bit of intrusive information, but it's only for the purpose to help you achieve this goal that you set out on, because a lot of times, this is multiple years of planning for someone to get to this point. And, we don't take that lightly. Yeah. I don't think anyone does.
Yeah, we really don't. And what do you love about your job?
I went from, I had 10 years of accounting that I got my degree in, and no knock to anyone out there who's an accountant, but I just realized, and my dad's been an accountant, he's retired of like over 40 years, and what I enjoy most, what I realized is that getting from that world into this world, I knew nothing about title and escrow when I got this job. Had never done a cold call, didn't even know what title and escrow was when I started. So I felt like I was learning with a lot of the agents that I would work with. And the level of excitement when we would find success together, like they would get their first listing, or we would close that contract with their buyer. Back to the relationship thing, the relationships that I've built in this industry, the friendships that I've been able to develop, I say it every day. They've all made me a better person. The excitement of expanding my networking and meeting people with various backgrounds and different mentalities, and understanding how everyone needs to be treated. It's the landscape of the job kind of changes just about daily, and I like that refreshingness. Is that a word?
Sure, we'll make it a word today.
And just back to the difference between accounting and this role is, I kind of felt, for me at least, accounting, while it can be like that dependable, reliable lifestyle, to me just kind of felt a little bit like Groundhog's Day at a certain point, right? And I love that this is always changing, and every day was just yesterday. We're always marching forward, and it's a challenge. It's not a guaranteed business, and
definitely,
the amount of work that we all put in behind the scenes, and we can collectively high five when something closes, and we can work together on helping everyone grow. Again, the relationship building, the friendships, meeting people, I think that is what has meant the most to me. It's the part of the job that gets me excited every Monday. I look forward to it.
So do you wake up on Monday, log into your computer, and see which one of the agents have things going on?
I do that Saturday, Sunday.
Oh, you do?
I honestly, it is the hardest thing in the world to turn off.
Really?
I think one of my key phrases to anyone I work with is, at the end of a phone call, end of an interaction, is like, if you have any questions, if anything comes up, I work the same hours you do.
Oh, great.
And every real estate agent, loan officer knows what that means, because we never stop working. I mean, we work in the hours that a normal 9 to 5 doesn't work. That is where we really get our most valuable level of support and availability, and so people know that they're being taken care of. I mean, I think it's important to establish healthy boundaries.
Oh yeah.
But it's just not always the case sometimes.
Right. Especially when you need something urgently, and I know, okay, I can call my title person, it's 8:30 on a Saturday night, and I need to know.
And that goes back to the relationship thing. That's why, when realtors are like, we can use any company you want, but this is the company I have a relationship with. And I think anyone at any company does, or in my opinion, at least it's how I like to approach my business, should be available. It's just, again, it's all part of that. Like, it could be a Saturday, and I hate to bother you, and I always have to remind people, you are not bothering me. Like, this is where I get to help. I'm not on the escrow side of it. I'm not clearing your title. I'm here for this phone call right here. So I love those moments. I love being able to step in and help. I love being able to give an answer to an agent who then can take it to their clients, give them peace of their mind. They can enjoy their weekend. We're back to work on Monday. It never really turns off. I do, every week, I do look at, the activity over the weekend. I monitor activity throughout the week in my market and try to find out, what does the market even look like?
All the time.
How many listings went live? How many of those are actually closing? Do I recognize names? Am I seeing new names? And, that's where a lot of my business comes from, outside of, coming to different brokerages and meeting the familiar faces that are here on the floor working.
Yep, that's awesome. Well, guys, there you go. So that answers a bunch of our questions, basic questions for regular people when you are buying or selling real estate. And again, if you're in the Tacoma or South Puget Sound area, I would love to serve you. I prefer Pierce County, but I'll go anywhere if you call me. And then this episode has been produced by Will Robs of Will Robs Art. So thank you for listening.